Hi greedy 3Ders. Now since resin printing has come into the greedy 3D man cave, I've kind of fell out of love with FDM printing. That's all about to change. So Anycubic have made some bold claims here. So I've ordered one of these Vipers and it's arrived. I have paid for this myself. I haven't been given this as a gift, so I'm not reviewing something that's been gifted to me. I paid my hard-earned wonga for it. And it arrived in one piece from the wonderful China, and it got a little bit battered on the way. There's some marks in the box, but the packaging is so good that it all came in one piece. Now there's many layers of this like foam which protects it all, and once you've got all that out of the way, you can start to look at what you've actually got in the box. And this is what has come in the box. The printer itself, it comes in two main parts, the top and the bottom, and I did scratch my head a little bit putting this together, so don't be daft like me. This is how I worked out how we did it in the end, and it was to put it on the edge of my kitchen unit so I could get at the screws. Now I tried leaning it over first and it failed miserably, so that's why I've moved it to the edge here. Don't make the same mistake that Greedy did. Take it straight to the edge, balance it on the top, and you can screw it in. Now there's only 7 screws to put the whole thing together, and to be fair, it took me about half an hour to put the whole thing together. Once the base was on, the axis was on, I put the screen on, and this is a touch screen. Really nice bit of kit, very pleased with that. 3 screws hold that onto the base unit and they went in relatively easy. Once that's done, I put the spool holder on, and straight away this is a problem. I don't like the way this sticks out of the side. It just takes up too much real estate, so I will be printing a top spool holder for my first print. Now I know there's some debate about top holders wobbling it, but if I have an issue I'll change it back, but it's just too wide where it is. You then connect the Bowden tube in. It's all very easy and very straightforward. That went in straight away. The connections are pretty self-explanatory. You don't need to be Brainbox of Britain to work it out. The instruction book that comes with it is very good, and I've then wired up the stepping motors. Again, they could only really go in one place. No sort of dramas there, and they all clicked in nicely, and I didn't get any problems with the electric. It's all been made very well, and there's just enough wire to plug it all in. There's no bits of wire dangling and hanging. I've used the supplied cable ties to put the Bowden tube with the power lead to keep it out of the way, and then you need to cut the big cable ties that hold the thing in shipping, and don't forget the one underneath. And that's pretty much you then ready for your first print. Apart from I had a wobbly build plate which I needed to tighten up. Again, the instructions are in there. Yours may not be, but mine certainly was, and it took a couple of tweaks to tighten it, but it was done really. Pop on the magnetic plate, and this plate, I have to say, is very good, and we are away. Now, the first thing you need to do is self-leveling. Now, if you've had FDM printers in the past, you know what leveling printers is like. It's an absolute nightmare. I hated it with a capital hate. Now, this self-leveling process was really simple. You just need to preheat the bed and preheat the nozzle, and it does a 16 move operation where it levels the bed. I can't tell you how happy I am that this self levels, and I can say that the claim by Anycubic is absolutely founded. It worked an absolute dream after I had leveled it. First thing I'm going to print, as I said, is this top spool holder because I don't like the side one. I found this on Thingiverse, links will be in the description, and I just used the filament that came with it. Now I knew there wouldn't be enough filament to complete, so I thought that the run out sensor would be tested. And again, that's another thing I used to hate about FDMs is do I have enough PLA? Is it going to run out? What happens if it runs out and I'm not there? This solves the issue to a point, and we will come back to why I say to a point later, because the run out sensor does work. The the flat bed here, the magnetic sheet, holds that print absolutely marvellously. I didn't need glue, I didn't need builder's tape, it just held it like glue itself, and I was absolutely chuffed with the adhesion. Now, for those of you that are used to adhesion problems with FDM printers, I can honestly say this has solved that problem. I've had nightmare after nightmare going through the years, and it was one of the things I hated about FDM, but so far so good. So let's just have a little look at the specs of this machine. So as you've already heard, it's got an auto leveling 16-point precise pressure strain gauge function, which works really well. You've got a large printing area. You're looking at 9.6 inches times 9.6 inches times 10.2 inches high. If you're metric, that's 24.5 times 24.5 times 26. Now, you will get some fast and stable printing on there, and you can reach up to 7.1 inches per second. That's 18 centimeters per second, although Anycubic actually recommend 80 millimeters per second, which is not a bad speed at all. Now, the print bed will go up to 260 degrees. The operational hot bed temperature is 110 degrees, so great for your different kinds of filament, PLA, TPU, ABS, PETG and wood. Now, there is a double gear extrusion system, and I found this to be most reliable, loading filament and withdrawing filament too. Now, as for silent operating, have a listen, see what you think. I don't think it's that quiet. Now, I did the test print in the living room. When I sat there talking to my wife, you could really hear it in the background. It was quite an annoying noise. The fans are really loud. The operating motors might be quiet, but it's certainly not a quiet machine, so don't think about sticking it in your bedroom. Now, another wonderful addition is the run out sensor. How many times have we been caught out with this without it? Well, I let the filament run out, and right on cue, this is what happened. So I managed to change my filament right when I needed to, and it didn't interrupt the printing process. It started again and everything went really smoothly. It was easy to load in. You literally just follow the prompts on the screen, feed the filament in, and it will draw it back through, and the whole process will start printing again. Absolutely toppity dog. So the first print was over. It took about 3.5 hours to print this, which is pretty good, I think. And the machine, when it finished, did its usual. It homed itself, and it fed me the desired item. And I left it to cool for around about 10 minutes. Took the build plate off, and I was in a little bit of heaven here with just a little nudge on the build plate, and look at that. It's come off in one piece. It's printed really well. It's firm, it's fantastic, and it does what it says on the proverbial Thingiverse tin, and I now have a top spool holder for my printer. Really pleased with that. Came off the build plate marvellously, and now it's reduced the footprint of the printer. I am chuffed with a capital chuffed. So everything was going smoothly. I took the printer out of the living room, I moved it into the man cave, made some space for it, moved it all around, popped it in there. Next morning when I went out to the printer, I thought, you know what, I'm going to print something else. There I had a problem. I kept getting this error message. Now, I tried disconnecting all of the power leads and I reconnected them. I turned it off and on. I changed the lead. I did lots of things that I could think of, and then I googled it, and it turns out that this printer does not like to be in temperatures less than 10 degrees centigrade. I moved it back into the living room, gave it about 10 minutes, and it worked absolutely fine. So this has got to be a factor that you take into consideration before buying this. If you're going to be keeping it in a garage or an area less than 10 degrees, you may have some problems starting it up until it reaches 7, 8, 9, 10 degrees, because it was 7 degrees in the living room when I tested it, and it worked okay then. So it is a factor. There's probably ways around it. I'm not quite sure what they are. I have read certain things like hitting the hot end with a hairdryer, but I'm not going to recommend that. You need to do a little bit of Googling yourself, but it's a factor for you. If it's going to be in a cold environment, it might be a bit of a problem. Okay, so what are my thoughts on the Anycubic Vyper? Let's look at the pros. It's a really well-made machine. The assembly is easy, only 7 screws, a couple of power cables, and you're pretty much done. It weighs about 10 kilograms, and you can feel how well it's made. Now, the auto bed leveling is an absolute godsend. It works really well. In fact, you can't adjust it any other way. There's no knobs to do that on there. You can adjust the Z-axis if you need to on the fly, which is another positive. The run-out sensor is good. There's a negative to it, which we'll talk about, but on the whole, it works really well, and it is good. Transparent double extruder, you can see what you're doing inside. It holds the filament really well, pleased with that. The average build volume of an ender, as an example, is 220, 220 times 250. This build volume is 245, 245, 260, so a great size build plate there. Now, as I said, the magnetic plate is incredible. You can turn it over if you want a flat surface, but you might get some adhesion issues like other FDMs, but on the whole, the plate itself, if you use it the way it's intended, is excellent, and things just pop off it when it cools down. Now, the nozzle up to 260, the bed 110, that gives you lots of options with your print materials, not just PLA. I like the belt tensioners also. They're really good, and they're adjusted with the Allen key. So on the whole, lots and lots of positives. Okay, so to every positive, there are some negatives. Thankfully, the negatives don't outweigh the positives, but let's have a look at what they are. The operating temperature for me is a big one. Less than 8 degrees or you start to experience problems. You know, most countries of the world, like England, America, are going to experience that most of the year, apart from summer, or if you haven't got in a heated room or inside your house, it's going to be cold. Lots of people do these things in their garage or their man cave outside. If that's you, you might experience a problem. If you're going to run it inside and it's over 8 degrees, you haven't got a problem, but it's definitely something to take into consideration. Now, the input for files, SD card, seems a little bit antiquated. There's no USB option, there's no Wi-Fi option, so I think we probably need to look at that a little bit in the year 2023. The spool holder on the side for me was just made in the footprint far too big, so Thingiverse has a file that you can print on the top, and I'll show you that in the description, and that worked for me, and it reduced the footprint, so that's okay. It's solvable, but it shouldn't have been there in the first place, in my humble opinion. The run-out sensor, as I mentioned earlier, is good. It's great. It does the job. However, when it stops working because the sensor clicks in, it cools the bed down, which can make the print fall off if you don't get to it quick enough. So yes, it's good, but you have to replace that PLA or whatever other material you're using quickly, otherwise it's going to fail anyway. So those are the negatives. The negatives, as I say, are not outweighed, are rather outweighed by the positives. So on the whole, would I recommend you buy this printer? Well, I bought it. It cost around about the £300 UK mark. It's got the things that I love about FDM printing that I didn't love before, and they are the auto leveling, the bed adhesion. I've gone through all the positives, you know what they are. But do I recommend you get it? If you're in the market for an FDM printer, then I don't think you can go wrong with this one. I think it's really, really good. It's good quality. It's well built. Anycubic has been going around a while. They do a lot of printers, as you can see, and I've also got some resin ones, which I've had real issues with their resin work. You can check out my review, actually, for the Anycubic Mono X that I've done recently, and although I had a blip at the start, it's good. But let's talk about FDM. I recommend this printer, absolutely. It gets the greedy 3D thumbs up. The print that came off it for me, in fact a couple of prints have come off it for me since you saw me making the first one, have been excellent. They've popped off, there's been no problems, everything has been good. There are negatives, the temperature is one, but I recommend you get this printer. Thank you for watching. If you want to buy a print, if you need the link for it, it's in the item description. As an Amazon affiliate, a little bit will kick back to the channel and just allow me to continue doing videos. Now, it won't cost you guys anything, but it does help me a little bit. And don't forget to subscribe. Please like, please share it with your friends, and stay tuned for the next episode of Greedy 3D.